Good afternoon, students. The today topic for the lecture is biodiversity loss, assessment of the causes. So as we know that in the last lecture, we have discussed that what is biodiversity, what are the uses of biodiversity, and what are the various types of biodiversity, why India is a mega diverse nation, what are biodiversity hotspots. In today's lecture, we will discuss about what are the major reasons behind the loss of biodiversity. So as we know that human beings and their activities, they are continuously pushing the biodiversity towards extinction. So the current rate of extinction can be termed as the sixth mass extinction. According to one estimate, 200 species of organisms get extinct per year, and some of them might get extinct before they are being discovered or known to the scientific community. And human actions, there are n number of reasons because of human activities. They are pushing 25% of the world species towards extinction within the next 20 to 30 years. And as we see that the global warming is progressing, and earth ice cap is basically getting melted, and oceans are getting polluted, and wetlands have been lost because of the human activities. uh, as the demand of various resources, they are increasing, basically we for satisfaction of the human needs, we need more than one earth. And at current rate of consumption of various resources, we can say that around 1.56 earth they are required to fulfill the human demands for resources. And if we see that agriculture is responsible for 80% of the global deforestation rate, and the food production is linked with 50% of the loss of terrestrial biodiversity, and 70% sorry, 50% loss of the forest biodiversity, and 70% of the terrestrial biodiversity loss. And 52% of the agriculture production land even is getting degraded. If we see the trend between the 1900 and 2016, the area which is there in agriculture and built up has doubled in these years. And as we see that we are nearing with the sixth mass extinction, so you can see that the biodiversity, which includes all your bacteria, fungi, plants, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, invertebrates, they will die out in large number. And human driven activities, they are responsible mainly for that. Unsustainable use of land, water, energy, and climate change, they are mainly responsible. And the current rate of extinction, it is estimated, it is between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than the natural extinction rate. The 2020, there is a report called Global Living Planet Index report, which shows that an average 68% decline in monitored vertebrate species between 1970 and 2016. Similarly, a 94% decline has been observed in South America, especially the tropical South America, Latin America. The major decline has been observed there. As we compare in the Living Planet Index report, that various subregions of the world, they have shown different rate of extinction of species, and also in the decline of the number of species. The most prominent one which has been observed among the tropical subregions is in the Latin America. And the major reason behind is that the grassland, savanna, wetlands, they are basically converted into agricultural fields, and overexploitation of species, along with climate change and alien species, they are responsible for these events. Here is a comparative chart that shows that how much decrease in the number of vertebrate species have been observed all across the various subregions of the world. So in North America, 33% decline has been observed. In Europe and Central Asia, 24% decline has been observed. As I discussed, in Latin America and Caribbean, 94% decline has been observed. In Africa, it was 65%, and in Asia Pacific, which includes India, it is 45% decline as we compared from 1970s till 2016. This is the data which has been given by Living Planets Index report of 2020. And here, this diagram basically shows that various indirect and direct drivers which are leading to the biodiversity loss. So indirect drivers basically include the human consumption pattern, demographies, institution, governance pattern, technology, economics, conflicts, along with epidemics. These are some of the indirect drivers, and direct drivers include the excessive fishing, overfishing, agriculture, energy, mining, infrastructure, forestry, tourism. So these are some of the human pressures or activities which are leading to the biodiversity loss. And we have the direct drivers, which include the habitat loss, degradation, overexploitation, climate change, pollution, invasive species. So together, all these things, they are impacting those ecosystems, the health of the ecosystems, and finally pushing the species towards the brink of extinction. Here we can see that what are the major factors in marine areas and the sea, and the drivers of change in marine areas and sea are the fishing, which is leading to over exploitation of the fishes. Illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing is major cause of the decline in number of fisheries and fishes all across the globe. Then we have the climate change, which is leading to the warming waters, ocean acidification, increased oxygen minimum zones, and more frequent extreme events. Land-based pollution, which you all know that it includes the increased use of fertilizers and pesticides, along with the plastics. They are also basically impacting the oceans. The Great Pacific Gyre, as we see, basically there is large plastic pollution which can be observed in the Pacific Ocean. And in today's time, you can even find the plastic waste in those virgin islands where human haven't even reached there. So then we have the ocean-based pollution, which includes your oil spills. And oil spills impact the marine environment in major way. A thin black film is formed over the surface of the water, the marine water or the sea water, which prevents the sunlight from penetrating the oceans, impacting the food chains there. Also, it impacts the health of fishes, the seabirds, along with the marine mammals. If we talk about the coastal development, the building of the ports, along with the major infrastructure which is built along the shorelines, cause increased pollution and waste disposal in the seas. Along with the invasive alien species, they are also driving the major, they are also causing the major extinction of the marine fauna. Then we have the loss of agrobiodiversity, which is also of major concern. Since green revolution in India, HYVs, that is high yielding varieties, they are more preferred over the traditional varieties of the plants. And therefore, we see that in agriculture, 5 or 6 or not more than that are generally used in agricultural fields. So our traditional varieties and the genetic diversity basically is getting impacted because of this. And this trend is observed all over the world. If we look at the world scenario, some 75% of the plant genetic diversity has been lost as farmers worldwide. They basically depend on the high yielding varieties. The similar trend goes for the livestock, in which 30% of livestock breed are at risk of extinction, which means that 6 breeds are lost each month. And 75% of the world food is generated only from 5 animal species and 12 plant species. So on, you can say that the agriculture is also getting homogenized. Basically, our dependence on few genetic species, or you can say the genetic uh, forms or varieties of the plants, our dependency is basically increasing on them, and the traditional varieties, they are getting eliminated because they are no more used for agriculture purpose. So of this 4% of the 250,000 to 3 lakh known edible species, only 150 to 200 are used by humans. And out of these, you can say that the wheat, maize, and rice, they contribute 60% of the plant-based diet used by humans. So this is a critical scenario, an alarming scenario, which can be observed in the agrobiodiversity sector. Then we come to the IUCN Red List. There is an organization, international organization, which is established in 1964, known as the International Union for Conservation of Nature. And every year it publishes the Red Data Book, which contains the Red List of threatened species. This red list of threatened species give the comprehensive information regarding the extinction rate and risk status of various species of animal, fungus, and plants. It also helps the policy makers and decision makers to basically take quick action if some species they are getting extinct from the face of the earth. It also helps to guide and inform the future conservation and funding priorities, that which species should be given more priority as compared to other. Basically, Red List helps to guide that. Then we come to the various facts regarding the Red List. So in that, if we can see the current trend, around 1,42,500 species around the world, they are assessed for their status by the IUCN. And out of these number, which I have given, 40,000 species are facing the risk of extinction. And this is 28% of all assessed species. In this, 41% are amphibians, 37% basically include the shark species, 21% are the reptilian species. And if we talk about the plant species, 63% are of them, they are cycads, and 34% are the coniferous species. So we can see that this scenario is quite an alarming, because you can say that 1/4 of all those access species, they are in the danger category. They are threatened with the extinction. Then if you see the data from the IUCN Red List are used to calculate the Red List Index, which is also termed as the RLI, and is one of the biodiversity indicators used by Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. So Convention on Biological Diversity basically depend upon the List Index to monitor the progress towards achieving the strategic plan for biodiversity between the 2011 to 2020. And the IUCN Red List data is also used by the United Nations for achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 15, which is the diversity on the land. So basically, it also depends upon the red data list. So here, by the flow chart, we can understand what are the various categories which are there in IUCN Red List. So all the species, basically, first they are divided into two criteria. One is evaluated and second one is not evaluated. So evaluated ones are further divided into data deficit, and ones with the adequate data, they are further divided into seven categories, which include extinct, extinct in the wild, critically endangered, uh, endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, and least concern. So as we move from least concern to the extinct, the rate of extinction basically it increases. The risk of extinction, it increases from least concern as we move towards the critically endangered or extinct in the wild. So here is a criteria how the species, they are categorized into the threatened category. So there are 5 criteria through which it is decided. First one is the reduction in the population. Second one is the reduction in the geographic range of the species. Third one, the small population, either the species is very small in size, or because of human activities, the population of that species are pushed towards extinction. So now at present the population size is very small and it is declining. Fourth criteria is very small or restricted population, especially those population of endemic species, which we have discussed in the last lecture. And fifth one is extinction probability analysis, in which the species are subjected to the probability analysis, whether the human activities, if they continue unrestricted or unabated, the species, they are pushed towards extinction. How much probability is there for that? So accordingly, they are categorized into 3 categories, that is vulnerable, endangered, and critically endangered. So now we will discuss in detail about the various categories of red list which are there. So first category is extinct, also termed as EX. And a taxon is extinct when there is no reasonable doubt that the last individual of that species has died, or extinct whether also in the wild and also in the captive breeding centers such as zoological parks or botanical gardens. A taxon is presumed to be extinct when exhaustive surveys is done and at appropriate time throughout its historical range, and they fail to regard that individual in the wild and also in the captivity. So here is some of the examples of the extinct species. And first one is the dodo. This bird was present in the Mauritius island, and it is a flightless bird. It is basically related to the pigeons. And because in Mauritius, there were no natural predators of this bird has become flightless. And it also lays its egg on the ground. So what happened was, when the sailors, the human beings, when they reached the Mauritius Islands, they started hunting this bird because its meat is quite tasty, and also along with that, the rats which were accompanied these sailors in their ships, they started attacking the nest and nestlings of this dodo bird. So within a span of few years, this bird was extinct from Mauritius. Similar fate awaited for the another bird, which you can see in the diagram, that is passenger pigeon. Passenger pigeon was once very abundant in North America. So abundant was this bird. Then when the herd of this bird, they flew in the air, the whole sky used to turn up black in color. So it was quite abundant, but it was hunted down for its meat. And within a century, not more than a century, this bird was declared as extinct from the face of the earth. So there are quite a few examples of extinct birds and animals. Here is another example you can see, that is Indian cheetah. So cheetah was once a plenty in India, and this name cheetah was derived from Sanskrit. Basically, the spotted cat is known as cheetah. But now we can see in India, it has been exterminated by excessive hunting and loss of habitat. And the last cheetah specimen, it was killed in the wild in 1949. So this cheetah is now extinct from India. but Asiatic cheetahs is still found in parts of Iran, but that too is critically endangered. If we talk about the cheetah is still present in Africa, and now the plans are there to reintroduce this cheetah back into the wild in India. Kuno Palpur Sanctuary in Madhya Pradesh is chosen for bringing back the cheetah from Africa to India. So basically, this species will now be reintroduced in India. This is the latest news about it, and these cats will be imported from Namibia in South Africa. Uh, One more interesting thing I want to mention here, that the cheetah was kept as pets by Mughal courts and also by Britishers, and they used to accompany them during the hunting expeditions. The hunting expeditions which were carried out by Britishers and also by during the Mughal period, the paintings and the photographs of that period clearly depict cheetah. So once upon a time, it was very popular, kept as a very popular pet by the royal families. But now it is totally exterminated from Indian condition. But hope so. Now it will be translocated here from Namibia, and it will once again flourish on Indian subcontinent. Next category is extinct in the wild. So extinct in the wild means that this taxa is no more found in the wild, but still it can be observed in the captivity. So still there is chance that from captivity, these organisms, when the threats in the wild, they have gone, then they will be reintroduced back in their original wild habitat. Some of the example of extinct in the wild are Hawaiian crow. Okay, the Hawaiian crow and Accipiter oryx. They are some of the examples of the extinct in the wild animals. The third category is critically endangered. So critically endangered, they are facing the extremely high risk of extinction. And over the period of 10 years, 90% or more population reduction have been observed uh, in the case of such animals, plants, or microorganisms. So such organisms, they are clubbed under the category of critically endangered. So here is one of the example of an organism which is critically endangered, and the name is the white-rumped vulture, or the white-backed Bengal vulture. The scientific name is Gyps bengalensis. So what happened to the vulture population in India, especially four species of vulture, they are facing the immediate threat of extinction. Till 2000, year 2000, and before that also, vultures were quite abundant. Even in city like Delhi, vultures were once so abundant. Then if you look at the sky was full of vultures. They are flying around. They are encircling on the thermal currents, using the thermal currents. But now you can say within a span of decade, more than 90% decline has been observed in the vulture population. And the major cause behind is a veterinary painkiller drug known as diclofenac. Okay, so diclofenac is basically used as a painkiller, especially for veterinary purpose, and it is not very harmful for the mammals, but in case of birds, it leads to kidney failure and gout-like condition in them. So what happened was when this drug called diclofenac is administered in the cattle, and when they die, they are basically then thrown out of their dead bodies. They are basically dumped outside the villages. And here the vultures, they are waiting for the dead cattle bodies, and they used to consume on their meat. And what happened when these diclofenac registered cattle, when they die and when they are consumed by the vultures, obviously then what happened was these vultures, they started dying because of the unknown reason. At that point of time I'm talking about. And when the scientists basically when they took the samples from the dead birds and when they scientifically researched on that, they found that the main cause is the diclofenac drug. So 90% of the world, the population of the vultures, which was so abundant, it has been decimated. This includes Gyps bengalensis, Gyps indicus. So 4 species of vultures, they are facing the critical threat of extinction.
ऑरेंज कलर की प्रिंट उसके ऊपर छोटे छोटे फ्लावर येलो वाइट.
This is another bird which is also facing the immediate threat of extinction in India, and that is great Indian bustard, also known as the son chiraiya or son chidiya in Hindi. Once it was abundant in the state of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. But now it only less than 150 birds they are surviving in the wild, and it has been exterminated from the states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. Only last surviving population of this bird is found in Desert National Park, which is located in Rajasthan, and that too is facing immediate threat of extinction because of slow breeding rate of these birds. Every year, these birds, the pair of these birds lay only one single egg. Okay. And they are very slow breeders. At the same time, they are the largest and the heaviest flying bird of the world. So these are the heaviest flying birds of the world, and also the largest bird which is found in India. The grassland habitat of these birds, they are under threat because of the expansion of various invasive species of trees such as Prosopis juliflora. Along with that, the grasslands in India, they are they are considered as wastelands, and they are either converted for infrastructure projects such as setting up of wind farms where windmills they are set up, and energy is basically produced at a very large scale. So this bird is also facing a very dark future because of the human activities. Now, the next category is the endangered. And endangered also, there is very high risk of extinction in the wild. And but the population has reduced by 70% or more in last 10 years. So this is the basic criteria for classifying any species in the endangered list. If you see the examples from India, these are some of the animals which are endangered. First one is the Asiatic lion. So Asiatic lion is now restricted only to the Gir National Park of Gujarat. So once upon a time, this mammal was abundant in whole of India, but now it is only restricted to the Gir National Park because of the overhunting for the trophy purpose. So almost it was getting exterminated from the face of the earth. But Nawab of Junagadh has kept around 13 or 14 lions in his private hunting lodge. So that's why this animal has survived, and now because of the protection, it is now flourishing and coming back. The numbers is slowly increasing, and now we have almost like more than 500 lions reported in the wild. So the future is quite promising for this animal. The second one is the Nilgiri langur. So Nilgiri langur is basically found in the Western Ghats area of India. So because Western Ghats are also facing the same threat because of human activities, which include deforestation, mining, infrastructure projects, along with invasive species. So that's why the number of these organisms, they have dwindled. Next category is vulnerable. So in vulnerable, also there is high risk of extinction, and there is 50% or more population reduction of the particular species had been observed for past 10 years. Next to it is near threatened, and any organism can be classified as when near threatened when it is not qualified in critically endangered or vulnerable, but it is very close to qualifying into these categories in near future because of the human activities. Because if human activities continue unabated, then they might land in these categories in near future. And finally, we have the least concern. The least concern category means their population has been evaluated and they don't face any kind of threat at present or in near future. So such organisms, they are categorized in least concern category, and the example includes your house crow, Corvus splendens. Similarly, the Milvus migrans, the black kite, which you used to see around the cities, they are also can be classified as the least under the least concern category. Similarly, the rock pigeon or the blue rock dove. That is also very common in Indian cities, and we can say that it is least concern. And then we have the data deficit category. In that this category, inadequate information is basically available for that particular organism. So that's why these organisms are categorized under data deficit category. And finally, we have the not evaluated category, in which the species has not been evaluated for any of the criteria. Such species, maybe they are present in remote areas or inaccessible areas. So the species might not have been evaluated. They are categorized in this category. Now we come to what are the major causes of biodiversity loss. So first one is that habitat loss, deterioration, and fragmentation. So as we see that the human beings, they are marching, their footprints are marching on the earth, we see the reduction in the natural habitat of most of the wild animals. We see that increased buildup of infrastructure projects such as roads, railways, building of dams, mining activities, industries, they are impacting the habitat of the wild animals, and also the quality of the habitat, it is also getting deteriorated day by day. So the two terminologies are very different: habitat loss and second is habitat fragmentation. Habitat fragmentation means the whole habitat is fragmented into various small pieces, and now the biodiversity or the animal has to, if it has to move from one patch to another patch, he has to cross various infrastructure projects. If railway line is there or roadways is there, basically the organism has to cross that, and that leads to road kills. And you might have heard about various cases in which the elephants, they have died because of collision with the railways or the railway bogies. So many such incidences have been reported all across India, and their number is continuously increasing. As we are building the infrastructure along with roads and highways, they are passing through the natural habitat of birds and animals. The number of road kills and rail kills, they are continuously increasing. Similarly, the mining activities and building of dams, if we talk about the building of dams, they submerge the areas which are present around the riverine habitat. So the animals, they have to migrate from that area. Similarly, mining causes disturbance in the movement of the wild animals, and they also have to move towards other areas. Construction of dams, they also basically impact the aquatic flora and fauna, especially the migration of fishes. If you know that the natural flow of the river is obstructed because of the construction of dams. So if the fishes, they have to move from or the migrate from one area to another area or from upstreams to downstream, their migration activity is basically impacted because of that. In India, especially grasslands, they are thought to be as wastelands, and major infrastructure projects, they are sanctioned for that purpose, because it is assumed that this area doesn't have any tree cover. So if there is no tree cover, that means this is not very suitable for living of any kind of animals, and that's why this area can be diverted for infrastructure project purpose. So that is also reported in India. And encroachment problem especially observed in case of wetlands. In Delhi also you can observe that wetlands were once abundant in Delhi, and now the government of Delhi's data it indicates that most of these wetlands, they are either converted into parks, gardens, or the water is drained and they are converted into agricultural field, or they are converted into urban area. So these trends basically cause the habitat loss and their fragmentation. Next is global warming. And global warming is a major threat for the biodiversity. The ice caps, the ice caps, they are melting very fast. The sea levels, they are rising. The amount of carbon dioxide in the oceans, which leads to ocean acidification, is basically impacting the coral reefs. Coral reefs are very sensitive towards temperature. Any minute change in the temperature of the water, and the coral reefs, they start bleaching. So at present also the same thing is observed, that large number of coral colonies, they are getting bleached, they are becoming dead because of increased ocean acidification, and also because of the increase observed in the temperature of the water. Similarly, we have observed that the taiga forest is basically getting small or less. It's reducing in size, and the subtropical forests, they are marching northward. And it is all thanks to because of the increase of the temperature. At present, we can see that Europe is sweltering with very high temperature. In this point of time, in Britain, the temperature might touch more than 38.7 degrees centigrade, which is the all-time high temperature recorded in London. So the temperature might cross this threshold limit. Similarly, forest fires, they are rampaging the large tract of Spain and Portugal, and it is all thanks to the global warming and increasing dryness of the air in the air. In India also, in this summers, in case of Delhi, we have observed the temperature of 49 degrees centigrade, which is an all-time high record. And this time also we are observing very catastrophic floods, especially in the state of Gujarat, Maharashtra. And similarly, 2 weeks back, it was seen in Assam. So global warming is basically a has become a biggest threat for all the ecosystems all across the world. And it will prove as a catastrophe in near future if it is not prevented and the temperature is not curtailed within the or capped before 1.5 degrees centigrade. Next is overexploitation and poaching. So wild animals and plants, they are killed or they are captured from the wild in tens of thousands or lakhs. They are sold as a pet or as an ornament, or they can be sold as medicines. Sometimes plants, they are captured from wild and sold as an ornamental plant. So there are n number of examples because of that. For example, tigers, they are killed for their bones. The bones of the tiger, they are specially used in Chinese medicines. In China, it is believed that if you consume the powder of tiger bones, you will get that agility and strength of the tiger. So this is basically an assumption, and because of this belief, large number of tigers, they are killed in the wild. Similarly, for the ivory elephants, they are killed. Rhinos, they are killed for their horns. And recently, I was reading about this news that in Vietnam, the rhinos, the horn of the rhino, the powder which is obtained from that is basically used there. And it is in great demand, and which is exterminating the rhinos of South Africa. Similarly, bears, they are killed for gallbladders, which are again used in China. In China, basically, they are very basically consuming large number of wild animals, and sharks, they are basically killed for shark fins, and shark fin soup is also very popular in China. uh, Similarly, freshwater turtles, they are killed because freshwater turtle is used again in soups, which is delicacy in that country. Musk deer, they are killed for musk, which is used as in perfume sector. And wild plants at present, they are killed or over harvested from the wild for their medicinal properties. Similarly, in India, we can see the red sandalwood plant, which is endemic to Andhra Pradesh region. They are poached from the wild because this red sandalwood carry very high prices in international market. Similarly, in current times, large number of snakes, they are captured because in USA snakes are kept as pets. So people, they have this peculiar the hobby of collecting various kinds of snake, both poisonous and non-poisonous snakes. They are kept as the pets. So here are in these pictures, it will be very clear that lions are killed for their trophy, the rhinos for their horns, and leopards, tigers for their bones and for their skin. And another major reason behind extermination of biodiversity is invasive species. The foreign invasive species are the species of mammals, animals, plants, and also pathogens, which are non-native to any particular area, but they are deliberately or accidentally introduced to that non-native environment, and now they are flourishing. These organisms, they are flourishing in those non-native environments, and they are threatening the native species which are present there, along with the human well-being. So human well-being is also threatened, economic welfare or economic harm is also there, and environmental harm is also there. So if you see that according to Convention on Biological Diversity, 40% of animal extinctions is caused by invasive alien species. So they are impacting in large number, and it is still getting unnoticed. So if invasive species are not controlled, they can exaggerate or increase the poverty and threaten the development, because they can impact the sector of agriculture, forestry, and also they can hamper the ability of natural system to provide various kinds of ecosystem services. So here are some of the examples of these invasive plants and animals. For example, water hyacinth. It has been imported from Brazil because it is present in Amazonian rainforest in the banks and the streams. And from there, it has been imported, and now it is spread across almost 5 continents. In India also, it is very rampant, especially in polluted waters. You can see them in large number. They have very beautiful flowers, and for that reason they are introduced into various freshwater ecosystems, and now they have become quite an headache for them, for that these ecosystems. So second one is the ratus. It is believed that from India only these rats, they have spread all across the world, and they are especially impacting the birds, because they eat the hatchlings and also the eggs of the birds. If we talk about the invasive plant species which are present in India, there are ample examples of that. First one is the Prosopis juliflora, which is known as Vilayati Kikar in Hindi. And it is quite common invasive species which is found in Delhi environment, especially Delhi Ridge. Uh, Around 70 to 80% of the vegetation is dominated by Prosopis juliflora. This tree has been, the seeds of this tree has been imported by the Britishers from Jamaica and also from Mexico. Because it is very hardy desert tree species, its roots can penetrate 30 meters below the ground, and it can suck up all the groundwater. The leaves are non-palatable for any herbivores. The thorns, they are even assumed to be poisonous. And similarly, the pollen grains, they are you can say that they exhibit uh, allergic effects in humans. Uh, the roots of this species, they release some kind of chemicals along with the leaves, and they show allelopathic effect. So you can say that very few native plant species can thrive in the forest of Prosopis juliflora. Wherever this tree is there, it will start forming its own monoculture. So if you go in any forest where you can see Prosopis juliflora is there, you will find that another other plant species are not very adapted to live in these conditions. So they can't adapt to such condition, and the whole landscape is slowly is dominated by Prosopis juliflora, also known as Vilayati kikar in Hindi. Similarly, we have the Parthenium hysterophorus, which is also becoming a very rampant uh, alien invasive plant in India. The seeds of this plant, they have accidentally reached along with the wheat consignment from USA. Along with the wheat consignment, accidentally they have reached here, and now this plant is rampant all across the country. It has small white flowers, and the juice of this plant, it is highly allergic. If you touch the plant, or you get contact with the plant, it might result in dermatitis. Similarly, we have another plant known as Lantana camara. Uh, it has very beautiful flower. It is a kind of shrub which has been introduced by Britishers first in the Calcutta Botanical Garden. Because flowers of this plant, they are very good looking, and for ornamental purpose they have been introduced. But from there, uh, it has escaped into the wild around in 1860s, in that era, and now they can be found in all the jungles and protected habitats all across the country. So it is even threatening the native habitat of the tigers. If we talk about the invasive animal species in India, 58 invasive animal species have been reported. And in recent times, the ZSI, that is Zoological Survey of India, has released this list. Uh, we generally talk about the invasive plants, but invasive animals, they are least talked about. So even animals can be invasive, and in India, 19 fish species, 31 species of arthropods, 3 of mollusks and birds, and 1 of reptiles, and 2 mammalian species, they are invasive in our country. So here is a look of the pictures. It is clearly indicating, you can see them, that how these invasive plants they look. First is the Lantana camara, and as you can see, it has very beautiful flowers, and for its flowers, they are grown all across the country, but now it has escaped into the wild, and it is threatening the prime tiger habitat, because wherever it grows, it forms its own dense clusters, and it is non-palatable for herbivores, so herbivores can't feed on them. So that's why uh, it will also hamper the growth of grasses and other native plants on which these herbivores they survive. So if the herbivores number, it will decline, that will ultimately impact the number of carnivores, for example your tigers. So that is also a big threat for the tigers and other carnivores which are present in India. Jim Corbett National Park, once this lantana was abundant, but now lantana removal programs they have been carried out. But mind you, it is very costly affair, because we have to basically remove these plants from very large tract of area. So that definitely that is quite a challenging task. Similarly, Prosopis juliflora, as I told, it is a very hardy species, can survive in desert landscape, and now it has spread all across the dry lands of India. Especially it is impacting the dry lands of Kutch. There is a very popular grassland there, Bani grassland. So there it has spread across the whole region, and it is also impacting the habitat of the great Indian bustard, because in dry landscape it has spread, and it prevents the growth of grass and other native species. In Delhi also, if you go to Delhi Ridge area, whole of the Delhi Ridge area is full of these tree species. Next is you can see some of the examples of invasive animal species, which you can see on the screen. First is the African giant snail. And this is a very giant species of snail. It is almost of the size of your palm. So basically for pet purpose, because it is very curious looking and very giant species of snail, that's why for pet purpose they have been imported from Africa. And now in India it has become a pest for agricultural areas, and also it is marching into the wild areas and protected areas. The cases have been reported in Kerala, and even in Delhi also, I have myself observed this species in Delhi ridge area. During monsoon they will appear in large number, and they will consume all the edible plant species. So that these snails, they have become a real threat for agriculture. Next is the cane toad. As you can see on the screen, this toad has been introduced into Australia, and now it has become a real problem for the Australian ecology. This toad has been introduced there for killing the agricultural pests which are present in the sugarcane field. But now it has spread all across Australia, and basically it is a poisonous species. So it doesn't have any kind of natural predators. If birds or any other snake, they consume this cane toad, what happens is this species is poisonous because on its back it has many poisonous glands which are located, and it secretes poisonous secretions. So once if any predator consumes this cane toad, the predator dies. And this cane toad, it has been observed that when the predator, when it has died, this cane toad marches from his stomach towards his mouth and then escape back into the wild. So such cases have also been observed where any organism, they have consumed the cane toad, they have died, but the cane toad survived in the stomach and they came out of his mouth and then escape back. So it is quite a challenging task to remove cane toad from the wild in Australia. Next is pollution. So if we talk about pollution, air pollution and associated with it, the phenomena of acid rain. So acid rain is impacting the aquatic habitat also, and also it is changing the chemistry of the soil. So acid rain, when it deposit on the vegetation, it kills the vegetation, and along with that, when it gets deposited in the lakes and ponds, it changes the pH of the water. And as you know, if the pH of the water, it is reduced, definitely many kind of poisonous metals, they get activated, their poisonous activity or toxicity basically get enhanced, and that impact the aquatic flora and fauna also. Similarly, we can say that nutrient overloads, which leads to the process of eutrophication, and it is caused by excessive use of fertilizers and pesticides in the fields. So nutrient overloads is basically impacting the nitrogen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, and also causing large scale of algal blooms and impacting the freshwater bodies. As we know that eutrophication, it leads to increase of BOD, biochemical oxygen demand, and also it leads to reduction of DO, dissolved oxygen, in the water bodies, impacting the aquatic organisms. Now we will learn about man-wildlife conflict. So man-wildlife conflict is basically, it is increasing, and the major share of this conflict, it goes to because human activities. As we are marching towards the natural habitat of the wild animals, there is increased encounter between the humans and the wildlife, resulting in the loss at both sides. There is loss of property, there is loss of livelihoods, and loss of lives. Both the wild animals, they are also getting killed in large number, and also the human beings, they are killed in large number. So there is harm which is occurring at both the ends. Okay. And as the demand for food, it is increasing, human population is increasing, and demand for residential areas, demand land for residential purpose, it is also increasing. We can see that uh, the forests, they are converted into agricultural fields or residential colonies. So human wildlife conflict is basically, it is getting very serious, and we have to basically look at the root cause of that. So in these two pictures, it will be very clear that how human wildlife conflict, it is uh, taking shape. And you can say that in the first picture, you can see that leopards, they are coming into the agriculture fields, and human beings, they are trying to push away the animal, and they are trying to kill the animal with the sticks and the rods and the axes. So first is an example of that. So there are increasing number of cases where leopards and tigers, they are coming into agricultural fields or human dominated areas such as the urban areas. In your Mumbai, there is a park known as Sanjay Gandhi National Park. So there are increased number of cases where leopards, they are coming into the adjoining areas, especially Borivali, Kandivali, and these adjoining areas of this national park. And this is uh, and the cases of confrontation between the human beings and the leopards, it is continuously increasing. Similar case with the tigers also has also been reported all across the country. Even the large animals such as elephants, they are basically raiding the agriculture fields, because their natural landscape, their natural corridors through which they migrate from one forest patch to another forest patch, they have been occupied by humans, and they are converted into agriculture fields. Also, their natural forest has been invaded by the invasive plant species. So that's why there is not many food which is available for them in the wild, and they are coming in increased contact with the human beings. So in the second picture, you can see the clear example where the villagers, they are using the firecrackers for driving away these elephants, and the elephants, they have caught fire. The baby of the elephant have caught fire because of that. So increased human contact with the wildlife is challenging for both the species, whether it is humans, whether it is wildlife. So this need to be addressed as soon as possible. So why should we care about the biodiversity being lost from the ecosystem? So the major reason is that in nature, there is a complex web of life. Every species is interconnected with the other species. So if one species get extinct, you can say the whole web of life, it get disturbed. And you can see that there might be co-extinction also. Some species which only thrive on because of other species, they are habitat specialists. And if their habitat is modified, or the species with which they are associated, if that get extinct, they also get extinct. For example, if we talk about fig species, figs such as people, gular, these fig species, they have they are pollinated by basically a species of wasp, which is basically dependent upon uh, these species. For example, if we talk about people, people has its own wasp species which pollinate only people trees, the flowers of the people tree. It doesn't thrive on other kinds of flowers. Okay, similarly, so each fig species has association with a different kind of wasp species. And if suppose these figs, they get extinct, so even the wasp species which is associated with this fig species will eventually get extinct. So this is an example of co-extinction. Okay, so basically species, they never exist in isolation. They are always interconnected in nature, and if in one species get extinct, the whole web of life, it basically get disturbed. Okay, and species are also important. Biodiversity is also very important for doling out various kinds of ecosystem services. If biodiversity loss is there, there is severe threat for the ecosystem services also. So these are some of the references, and thank you so much. And now you can ask whatever queries you have with you, and I will be glad to answer all your queries. Thank you so much.
Professor Bhuvan, can you go back to your last but one slide where the references are?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, just let me take a snap of it, because if the PPTs are not available, then it becomes very... Your last but one slide. Before the thank you slide. Yeah, just hold, please. Great. I've got that as a snapshot. I asked you a question in the chat. If you can look at the chat.
Okay, sure.
So there are 15 out of 24 biodiversity ecosystems which are threatened, right? Now, I don't want you to answer, all the 15. Just provide us a link where we can find the 15 out of 24 which are endangered.
Okay, if you talk about the links, basically I have discussed this in my previous slides of the last lecture, and for that you can go to the reports of Millennium Ecosystem Assessment 2005 reports.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have basically referred to them. 15 out of 24 ecosystem services, they are at decline. It has been clearly mentioned there. And also you can see the latest Living Planet Index report, which has been published in 2020. So in that also it is clearly mentioned, and it will give you the brief overview how they are declining. Yeah, so in that also you can see, and the major ones, for example, if we talk about food, food, the marine fisheries, they are declining, but at the same time the aquaculture is increasing. So marine fisheries, they are declining, one of the ecosystem service. And secondly, if we talk about the global warming, reduction in the global warming, that is also basically declining, but at the same time some efforts are there which is counterbalancing it, because people, they are growing, they are doing afforestation and reforestation. So because of that, there is also some kind of balance which is occurring. So that is also there. Flood control, it is also getting impacted because of the deforestation, that is also reducing. So these are some of the ecosystem services basically which are getting impacted. Nutrient cycling is also impacted because your use of excessive nitrogenous and phosphorus fertilizers, and that is also getting impacted.
In fact, I was reading that, and I have shared a link called csc.org. It's a great site. I've actually purchased the report. I'm happy to share it with Professor Kuman and you, which actually says and proves it through data that we Indians, are the most undernutrited people in the world today, because of all the stuff that you mentioned, use of pesticides, all of the, and first of all, balanced diet. I don't think any of us actually are conscious about balanced diets, which are abundantly available, but certain communities or certain
Administrator, please off the recording.
So basically, what happens is that you know, like I'm a Bengali, so I eat rice.
Right.
Okay? I'm a rice eater. I don't like roti.
Mhm.
Now the
Administrator, excuse me, administrator, please off the recording.
I'll wait till the recording is.
It's okay.
Administrator has gone on holiday. Anyway, so basically, what I'm saying is that pulses, vegetables, normal water, seasonal vegetables, etc.,